It was a high-profile policy debate streamed live across the country with political commentator Karoline Leavitt and national security expert Kash Patel appearing as the primary voices in a town hall on immigration and intelligence. Tensions were expected, but no one anticipated the moment that would soon spark national outrage and reflection. The event began with pointed questions about the border, cyber defense, and internal threats. Both guests made strong arguments, though Karoline spoke with more aggression, frequently cutting off others mid-statement and dismissing nuance as weakness. Kash, on the other hand, maintained calm focus, carefully citing facts, referencing case law, and building each point with measured clarity. At the audience was captivated, but Karoline seemed agitated by his growing command of the discussion as Kash countered a particularly heated claim about security policy. Karoline rolled her eyes and muttered something beneath her breath. Her mic still lived. The room paused, and then the audio echoed out clearly enough for everyone to hear. "Why don't you go back to India? If you love foreign law so much," gasps filled the auditorium. Moderators froze, panelists turned in shock, and viewers across the nation stared in disbelief. Karoline looked immediately defensive but made no apology. Instead, she scoffed and added, "People are thinking it. I'm just saying it." Kash didn't move, his hands folded, his expression unchanged, but the atmosphere around him changed completely. The tension thickened into silence, heavier than any shouting match. After a long moment, Kash finally spoke, his voice low, steady, and devastatingly clear. "First of all, I was born in Queens, New York, and second, America doesn't belong to anyone who thinks citizenship is based on skin color or ancestry. It belongs to everyone who shows up, builds up, and speaks up." His tone never raised, but every word landed like thunder. "I don't need to go anywhere," he continued, "because I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, defending this nation from both external enemies and internal ignorance." Karoline flinched and looked away. The audience was still, then broke into scattered applause, which quickly spread into full clapping and cheers. The moderator struggled to regain order, but Kash remained centered. Karoline attempted to redirect by accusing Kash of playing victim and calling his reaction performative, to which Kash responded calmly, "You made the statement, I made the standard, and the standard is that racism has no place in discourse, especially under the guise of patriotism. If patriotism means silencing voices that don't look like yours, then it's not loyalty, it's supremacy, and we've seen enough of that to last 100 lifetimes." The entire room had shifted to his energy. Even former skeptics leaned forward, now taking in each sentence as if being schooled in dignity through fire. Karoline seemed to realize her error, but it was far too late. The damage had been done, and the internet was already catching fire within minutes. Social media exploded. Hashtags like "I stand with Kash" and "Born in Queens" trended across platforms. Users shared clips from the debate, quoting his response to the slur and calling it one of the most powerful public comebacks in recent history. News anchors replayed the moment with visible emotion, while legal analysts and civil rights leaders issued statements of support. Kash had not only deflected an insult, he had transformed it into a mirror for the nation to examine its biases, its blind spots, and its broken standards of respect. He didn't just defend himself, he represented millions who faced similar remarks without cameras and microphones to catch them. Karoline issued a statement the next day that tried to frame her comment as sarcasm, taken out of context, but the public wasn't buying it. Even prominent figures from her own political circles distanced themselves, saying the rhetoric was indefensible. The town hall organizers issued an apology to Kash and the public, affirming that discriminatory language had no place in any civic discussion, but Kash remained silent for 2 full days, choosing reflection over reaction, again displaying the discipline that had so clearly defined his response and perhaps deepened its impact. When he did speak again, it was not in retaliation, but with purpose and perspective. Kash posted a message across platforms saying, "I'm not interested in canceling anyone, I'm interested in educating everyone. Ignorance thrives where accountability sleeps. If we want better discourse, we must be brave enough to confront hate with fact and pride with purpose." The post received millions of likes and shares and was printed in full across multiple national newspapers. His grace under pressure was heralded not as passive, but profoundly powerful in thousands. who had remained quiet in their own experiences of racial bias, found new courage in his posture. And his poise, leaders in the Indian American community praised his restraint, while activists across backgrounds saluted his tone and timing what made. Kash's response resonates so widely was not just the shock of the insult, but the sharpness of his clarity. He had met rage with reason, condescension with conviction, and racism with rooted pride. He didn't argue, he illuminated, and in doing so reshaped the debate from political talking points into a cultural turning. Point talk shows began. Citing his words, scholars dissected them, educators brought the clip into classrooms and community centers, held viewings followed by open forums where children and elders alike discussed identity, belonging, and the line between freedom and decency. Karoline found herself under ongoing scrutiny. Her speaking engagements were canceled one by one, and protesters began showing up at her public appearances, holding signs with Kash's words printed in bold. She attempted a televised apology, but stumbled through it, visibly uncomfortable and unrehearsed. Many saw it as a performance, not a pivot. The trust was broken, and no soundbite would fix what the live moment had revealed. Kash, however, refused to speak about her again in public interviews, deflecting all personal questions by saying this was never about her. This was about us as a nation, and how we choose to speak to one another moving forward. Kash's popularity surged, but he didn't chase the spotlight instead. He used his growing platform to promote initiatives focused on civic education, immigrant contributions, and historical literacy. He launched a scholarship program for students studying law and public policy with a focus on underrepresented voices, and collaborated with libraries to distribute free civics materials titled Know Your Rights, Know Your Roots. His actions spoke louder than the insult ever could, proving that grace is the loudest kind of strength, and that redemption doesn't come from silence, but from showing up with substance over and over again. In a rare public appearance 3 weeks later, Kash spoke at a university forum and shared, "I'm not angry, I'm awake, and I want us all to be awake to what is said when people think it's just rhetoric and not responsibility." He received a standing ovation from students, faculty, and attendees from every background, many of whom had never seen someone take such a public blow and respond with both principle and peace. It wasn't just that he didn't shout, it was that he didn't need to. His words had already reached further than rage ever could that night. News outlets labeled him the voice of quiet strength, while one headline read, "When Hate Whispered, Dignity Roared, Kash Declined." Titles saying leadership isn't about having the mic, it's about knowing when to listen and when to speak. The moment had made him a symbol, but he resisted hero worship, choosing instead to lift others around him, especially young leaders of color, whose voices were often drowned out by louder, less informed rhetoric. His work continued quietly, but the effects remained public and lasting. Karoline, his career didn't end, but it changed dramatically. She issued a formal letter to Kash requesting a private meeting to discuss reconciliation. He responded publicly saying, "I accept the conversation not because I need closure, but because the country needs examples of how we face failure with humility. If she's ready to learn, I'm ready to teach." That reply drew widespread applause, again, not for revenge, but for redirection. People watched as someone wounded by words found the power to open a door instead of closing it. To met off camera weeks later, and though no details were shared, Kash mentioned in a later interview that he believed she was listening, and that sometimes that's where change starts. He never claimed victory, he claimed opportunity. And that made all the difference. He reminded a divided nation that grace is not weakness, and calling someone in can be more radical than calling them out. If the goal is growth, not just punishment years later, the clip remains part of American discourse, referenced not for shock value, but for its enduring lesson. It was included in documentaries, school curriculums, and civic exhibitions. Titled Moments That Moved Us, it wasn't remembered because of who insulted whom, but because of how one man used voice over volume and dignity over destruction to elevate a conversation that had collapsed into prejudice. Kash's words, "Go back to India. It's not an insult to me. It's a mirror to you," became etched in popular culture, printed on shirts, posters, and protest signs across all kinds of movements. People of all backgrounds reclaimed their roots through his stance, as if his moment unlocked theirs too. He gave people permission to be both proud and peaceful, and that combination proved unstoppably best-selling book later chronicled that moment and the transformation that followed, titled Born Here, Still Belonging. It explored the deeper psychology of racism wrapped in patriotism and how the language of division is often cloaked in national loyalty. Kash didn't write it, but he approved of its message, saying, "If it helps just one person find tea,